So I understand you are dipping into the world of podcasts with the 40/40 Vision podcast. Tell us a little bit about it. First of all, tell me what made you think about doing it, and then tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, of course. So it's an idea I've had for a few years now, and I started it with a couple buddies of mine, old college roommates, the start of last year, so January of 2022. And the idea is I wanted to make an evergreen sports history podcast. So you can pull up the podcast on any of the major platforms, and the idea is the content is almost always going to be fresh. So it's not going to get stale within a couple weeks because it's not a review of the Super Bowl or a preview of the playoffs or something like that. We do a lot of redrafts. We do what-if scenarios. We do some interviews with folks in the sports world. And I wanted it to be kind of like a book collection or encyclopedia collection where you can pull it off the shelf and listen to it at any time.
That's interesting. How did that all come about for you? Are you just like, I mean, there's podcasts out there all the time, and I'm wondering how you sort of came up with this idea, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I had a Sports Illustrated subscription since I was 8 years old. I've always been a sports history buff. I loved reading. I loved watching the old NFL films content and old NBA TV. ESPN Classic was one of my favorite channels when we were finally able to afford cable when I was in middle school. And I've always just been a sports history nerd, and I'm so fascinated with the world of sports and the what-ifs and all the butterfly effect scenarios and all that. So it's just something that, honestly, I never get tired of talking about. And I thought, why not just put this out there and see how folks respond? And I think it's done pretty well so far.
All right, so let me ask you, if you could, because you say take a deep dive into the history of athletes, teams, eras, and whatnot. Give me one example. Give me something that maybe we go, wow, didn't know that, or whatever. Is there anything that sort of sticks out to you or resonates with you?
Yeah, I'll give you one that's relevant to the NBA playoffs. So our first episode was a top 5 what-ifs in Warriors history. So I won't go into all 5. But the number one was, what if the Warriors traded Steph Curry instead of Monte Ellis for Andrew Bogut, which was a very real possibility. And when you look back at the history, the only reason that Milwaukee chose Monte Ellis over Steph Curry was because Steph was injured at the time. So if you remember early in his career, he was plagued with ankle issues.
Right.
And we're out there's a universe where the Milwaukee Bucks said, you know what, we'll give you Andrew Bogut, but we want that Steph Curry kid with the bad ankles, and you can keep Monte Ellis. So obviously you think about the butterfly effect of what the NBA would look like if that had happened, and it's just fascinating. We deep dive into that one quite a bit. And there's a couple others, but that was, of course, number one for the Warriors, because they're definitely not the Warriors as we think of them today without Steph Curry.
I tell you what, that's very interesting. I'm right now just trying to visualize Steph Curry running around